Okay, now the first step for week 2 is to create a line graph in both Excel and Tableau. We're going to start with Excel. In our Excel file that we're going to use is this physician quality metrics file. All right, so you're going to click on this. It's going to download, and what you can do is open. I'll just open it up. I have an older version of Excel. Enable editing. And you're going to want to save in a location that you can get to it later on. So just click Save As. I'm just going to plug it onto my desktop. In fact, I have an HIA715. I'll just plug it in there. Okay, click Save. I'm just going to cancel it because I already have a version of that. And I am going to... Okay, so the first step I want to do now that we have this, you can see there's different fields across the top, a lot of data. If you click on the About the Data, it'll explain a little better about what the data are, provide ID, measure, month, practice, so on and so forth. The data piece here is actually quite a substantial amount of data in here. There's about 39,481 rows of data in this one spreadsheet, which is quite a bit. It's organized by provider ID, provider, measure, measure ID, and so on and so forth. Now, the original request of this assignment says create a line graph showing the trend over quarters and years for each clinic and practice in the following cardiovascular health measures. For all the purposes of this, we're just going to do one of these measures. We'll stick to blood pressure check, CVH, as well as we're going to do just 2 of the practices. So what we want to do first is we want to click on our data, and what we're going to do is insert a pivot table. Okay, so just go to Insert. We're going to use a pivot table function. It's going to select our entire range by default, so 39481, that captures everything. You can see a new worksheet, existing worksheet. We want it on a new worksheet, and we're going to click OK. Now what that does is Excel takes all that data, compiles it into into a memory store, and so we can now manipulate that data very quickly. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to select our measure. We're going to do blood pressure check CVH. So our measure is going to go right here. Okay, so you can see all of the measures. We just drag that into the report filter. You have all of your measures here. You can click on select multiple items, deselect everything, and then click on blood pressure check CVH. Okay, now the next step of this pivot table, we click on there. We're also going to evaluate our practices. And so our practices, we're going to move over into our columns. So you can see the different practices, and if you go back to the data tab, you can see that practice column. You can see all these different practices in here. If we click on the filter, you can see all of those different practices showing up. So right here, we can see all our practices going across the top. Now, our practices are pretty important, but we do want to make sure that we're only going to select 2 of them. So if you click on the column labels piece, I'm only going to select Aroostook and Cumberland. Click OK. So you'll see Aroostook and Cumberland there. And let's see, what else do we need to know? We also want to know the number of compliant, I believe, let's see, create a line graph showing the trend over quarters for each clinic and practice. So the trend, we'll just call it the percent compliant. For these purposes, we're going to take that percent compliant. See, there's a lot of numbers there. We're going to move that over to the values. And what this values column does is you can aggregate the data in multiple different ways. The default setting says count of percent. So if you go right-click on that little arrow, click on that arrow, go to value settings, let's change that to average. So we get the average rate compliant for each of those groups, right? So we have Aroostook is 96.96 or 96%. Cumberland is 0.96 or 96%. And it automatically grand totals those. So you can see the average percent compliant for each of those locations. Now, we also want to trend it over time. So if you click on month, the month will drop down, into the row labels. And you can see that over time we have 9, 4, 10, 1, 11. So different months of the year. And then the compliance for each of those clinics over that time period, which is kind of a handy function. Now there's no graph here, so there's 1 of 2 things we could do. One, we could either just go and insert a line graph, which is pretty straightforward. click select data, add, and we can call this one Aroostook. And then we just select our values that way. So we just want to come in here and select, click OK. We want our x-axis to be our date range, so we're going to have our date range here. Click OK. And we want to also do Cumberland, so we'll call this Cumberland. And we're going to delete that. Let's see, so Cumberland, select those values. Click OK. It's going to have the same x-axis, but we might as well just cover that base just to be safe. There we go. Click OK. OK. You can see now we have this lovely chart that has takes a little bit of formatting to make it look how we want it to look. But you can see that those percent compliance for CVH blood pressure check for cardiovascular patients being trended over time. Pretty handy. Now there's another way we can do this a little bit quicker, which would require certain degree of formatting, but if you go back to your data tab, you click here, and then you, insert pivot chart. The pivot chart will create the same thing. So if we go same date range, new worksheet, click OK, you'll see down here it's in a new tab called Sheet 8. Pivot chart, we're going to do the same format, so we're going to select our measure here. We're just going to pick blood pressure. Let's see, where are you? There you are. Okay, we want our practices. We're going to bring our practices up to the column label, similar to as before. Column labels, we just want to do Aroostook and Cumberland for comparison. Now right here on our x-axis, you'll see that there's some numbers here. There's really no values yet, but those are our numbers so far. There's nothing really on the x-axis, so if we take our month value, you'll see it drops down to the row labels right here. So right now we have our months going across, no values, Aroostook's blue and Cumberland's red. So let's add in our percent compliant. So percent compliant, again, it gets dropped over here. We have to drag it to our values. We're going to change the count to average, as we did before. Click OK. And right now, we're just going to expand this out so that makes it a little bit easier to see. Right now we have a bar graph, right? So our bar graph, all we have to do is just change the type of graph it is. So right click somewhere on the inside, go to change chart type. We want it to be a line graph. Click OK. You'll see those bars have now been changed to lines. And now we can build out some of our formatting. I personally don't like to see those lines in there because it takes up a lot of space. I think since these are all percentages, we should change our axes to reflect that. So we want a number, we want to be a percentage, no decimal places, click OK, close. Okay, so now we have a nice looking, what's known as a pivot chart right here. And what we can do, we have the ability to go in and select a variety of different practices or locations if we'd like to do that. You can see that there we have it. When we do that, it's going to automatically format to the scale that it needs to be, which is pretty handy. Now, in newer versions of Excel, you can change the month to quarter or year. Right now, it's an older version, so I'm just going to keep it as month for now. But we do need to do a few things to finalize this this graph. Now, the important thing is always, let me see, whoops. We're going to, let me see, we want to add a chart title. This is going to be blood pressure check. Check. Trends for Aroostook and Cumberland. Typically, we add a date range, so 9 September 2014 to May 2017, and we could define that range a little bit better if we'd like to. You also want to make sure that you label your axes. So right down here would be month, and we could do that up here as well. So we have our primary horizontal axes. This is going to be, you label your month, you can label your percentage compliant over on the side and so forth. And so when you're all done, that is actually going to look something like this. Let me just see. You can see I have set this up already with all the formatting that I find pretty useful. I added a target line. Here in the background is going to be the sum of the total patients. Then here's our percent compliant for that blood pressure check. Formatting it, making it look kind of nice. Both axes are labeled and so on and so forth. Okay. Thank you very much.